I begin this stage of innovation and come to our panelists, I want to ask each one of you, can I have a raise of hand in terms of people who are excited about the usage of AI? Okay, everyone. And people who are afraid of AI, that it's going to lead to job losses, it's going to lead to negativity. None. Okay, that's interesting. So we have an interesting mix of audience today. So before I begin with our conversation, I would first like to give the mic to each of you, starting with you, Ravi, to briefly talk about the work you have been doing in AI and what are your thoughts?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Ravi Nawal. I am with the Responsible AI Foundation. The foundation is focused on spreading the word on responsibility while deploying AI solutions. We work with MSMEs. We work with industry participants across sectors. But we also work with policymakers. So we play a dual role. We are the people who communicate what is required from the ground to the policymakers and influencers. And we, on the other hand, also inform the sectors, industries, and MSME bodies about what are the various aspects of policies that could be relevant, that could define the future forward for them when it comes to AI. So that's us, the Responsible AI Foundation. We're a non-profit. Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Punita. Good morning, everyone. I'm Shashank, and I lead the business for CoRover Bharat GPT. We are into conversational AI space, and we have a agentic AI platform which helps you create agents, virtual assistants, all those in the form of chat, voice, and video. So we are most popular as Bharat GPT. Bharat GPT is our sovereign built large language model, which comes across with all the Indic languages and foreign languages as well. So we are busy in creating new innovations. As in the last AI India AI Summit in Delhi, we launched a few of the products like Edge AI, Desk AI, and Kanha AI for as a child companion. So these developments are in speed, and we look forward to helping the society by creating some impact.
Okay. Praveen?
Good morning, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I have close to about 28 years of experience in the technology services and product companies that I've worked with in the past. And from the last 2 years, my charter has been in terms of incubating AI talent and building AI for innovation for customers that we work with a keen interest in healthcare. So I personally work with a bunch of doctors and see how we can build AI of relevance for the healthcare industry.
Hi all, this is Vikram Balakrishna. So I am the CTO and head transformation initiatives at Atos for global technology centers. So I have been, again, like Praveen and the rest of my colleagues, in this industry for a while. And again, ever since the emergence of Gen AI and its, widespread usage and evolution, we in the organization also have significantly transformed both across for the usage of AI for everyday purpose, which we call everyday AI, and then AI for business, which is transforming every facet of our portfolio and also whatever we are delivering for clients across multiple geographies and across sectors. So looking forward to this discussion, and thank you, Punita, once again.
Thank you. So we have an interesting set of panelists who have further seen the evolution of AI and how it's going to shape up in the coming years. So I would first like to start with you, Ravi, because you run the foundation, and I started my conversation asking people about whether they're excited or afraid about AI. So when we talk about responsible AI, how do you look at it? And when you see the congregation of India vis-a-vis globally, how do you see it evolving?
So a couple of things here. When we talk about responsible AI, we typically dimension it around things like, is this AI or AI solution inclusive, right? And when we say inclusive, this is the how of the AI, right? Is it available in a format or a form factor where even the last person standing can use it? Is it available? So for example, Edge, he was talking about Edge solutions that they're kind of building for the larger Indian population, the masses. So that is one way of looking at inclusivity. The other way of looking at inclusivity is, can the person converse with AI in their own vernacular languages, right? So is that access also available? The way we interface with devices, technology in India, primarily if you look at it, majority of people are more comfortable using voice as a conduit, right? So that interface does it enable, right? Which we find that a lot of the Western-led models do not have. So inclusivity is one prong. The second prong is around transparency. Do I know what is going on, behind what I see in the AI solutions? Do I know how is it thinking? What is the explainability? If I were to call out and tell me what were you undertaking, in terms of the steps to get to the final output that you've kind of provided as part of that whole ecosystem. And here again, we see that a lot of this has to be contextual. So that is again the third prong, contextually relevant, right? So what is relevant for India? What are the data sets that are relevant for India? What works for the India? So say for example, yesterday, the government of India released the largest data set on diabetic retinopathy on AI Kosh. Now, diabetic retinopathy is a very unique Indian problem to a large extent, because the number of people who suffer from diabetes in India is the most largest in the world. Right. So that quantum of the problem here is very different from what it is in the West. So that kind of contextual relevance that this data set is useful for our population, that is something that needs to be established. Besides that, of course, there is accountability. When a lot of the work is happening in the global north, we are a market for them. But can we become a model for global south? When we establish these systems around AI. So that is the other prong that we need to think of as a nation. Talking about the difference between what we see abroad versus here in terms of AI governance, AI, solutions being rolled out. I think there are a couple of larger themes that are clearly evolving. One is the theme around the sandboxing approach that the Indian government has taken, right? So the idea is not to over-regulate, but still create a balance. You cannot have growth without providing the guardrails, that kind of directs that innovation and growth in a certain direction. So that is one difference that we clearly see. Europe has taken a certain kind of stand. Australia, on the other hand, has decided not to regulate specifically for AI, but let the industry sectors regulate, as they roll out other policies for their sectors, etc. And then we are somewhere in the middle, right, trying to create a more flexible architecture when it comes to AI regulation. So that's one large track. Then there are a couple of other tracks. How AI literacy is a challenge here in India, right? So again, that is a track that the government is cognizant of. The ecosystem players are cognizant of. Even the providers in the space, that the technology builders are cognizant of. So it requires to be dimensioned very differently for India, and that requires different kinds of guardrails again. Because when how do you spread the word about AI to ensure that people understand what is the difference between good and bad AI, right? And where the rights are protected and where their rights are ceded, right, as individuals. So those are the nuances that have to be played out or thought about differently in the Indian context. So that's where we are. Yeah.
Okay, I'll come back to you again, Ravi. Shashank, I want to come to you now. You said that you are building Bharat GPT and it's one of the sovereign AI. So first, how do you further explain for the audience sovereign AI, and how far are you in terms of building it for India?
Yes. So sovereign, in practice, that means that whatever is built in India, whatever can be trained in India, and what can be governed in India. This is what we mean by sovereign Bharat GPT. So this is completely built by us in India, and when we say that the control is within India, that gives a lot of control over your data, like the open sources, ChatGPT, Gemini, and all. So people are not very secure sharing their data on that. So when we say it is a sovereign AI, sovereign LLM Bharat GPT, we reach out to clients. The clients adopt us. The reason is that we are doing on premises with them, and we are making their data safe and private under their control, under their governance. So that is one part of it. The desk AI, which I mentioned before, I think that is again a supercomputer type of thing, which is a palm-sized device, which can be used by enterprises. And rather than using GPUs, the device which has the NVIDIA chip into it, the Blackwell, Gracewell chip installed into it, that helps cater to a lot of use cases, whether that is around governance, whether that is around healthcare. So we are expanding that gradually in the market. But yes, the theme, the agenda behind all these innovations and all, that we remain sovereign. And as most of the clients are government enterprises, so yes, sovereignty is one of the model. And yes, as Rajiv pointed out correctly, I think he covered most of the points: responsible AI, ethical AI, it has to be trusted. So all those things must be taken care of while implementing any AI solutions. Yeah.
Okay. Praveen, you have spent more than 2 decades, working with enterprises and industry at large. So how do you see today's enterprises adopting AI, and what future do you see for it in the Indian market?
No, great question. So this is a question that we deal with every single day. No, the context that I want to give is the inflection point in usage of generative AI started with ChatGPT, right? So if I have to respond to this in 2 different variations, the first is how the adoption has changed over the last 2 years, right? So year 1, it was mostly POCs, it was mostly with skepticism about how the model providers will use my data and I will lose my competitive edge to my competition, right? So that was the skepticism, and then we've seen adoption gradually increasing. The second part of my answer is, even today, I would want to classify the usage by 5 different layers of maturity. The first one are still fence sitters trying to see what others are doing. These are enterprises, these are not small companies. They don't want to adopt, they want to go slow, they want to see successes that other companies demonstrate. The second one are open to experiment. They have allowed employees to bring in their own AI, right? So you can use AI to improve productivity, build POCs, but these POCs don't go to production. The third level of maturity are those companies who are moving some of these POCs to production. See, there is a lot of difference in terms of building a POC. It's very, very quick. It's very rapid to build a POC, but it's not so easy to take something to a production. So the third level of maturity are companies that are taking these POCs to production. The fourth one is the companies which have certain things in production and making sure that one function or one business unit is seeing the benefit of deploying AI and want to scale it to multiple departments. And finally, the most mature ones are the ones which are ahead of the market. They are the leaders. Just like the digital transformation age where we saw digital leaders experimenting and demonstrating value, these are also the companies or the AI leaders who are at the forefront of adopting AI. So that's my perspective on the adoption.
Okay. Vikram, if I come to you now, and we discussed about enterprises adopting it. If I talk about the workforce, how they would be adopting it, because computers, of course, are much advanced. They are using human intelligence, and humans are also now adopting these skills. But what future skills does the workforce need now to be relevant for next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Thanks, Punita. I think a very relevant thing, and we've been, chatting about that offline as well. As we have seen and heard, and it's evidenced, right? It's no longer about, implementing AI and all that. It's happening in pockets, and also there is a lot of capability we are seeing in people understanding and, coming up with new use cases and stuff. So there are 2 sets of people clearly emerging. One, who have a theoretical awareness and are to a certain degree AI literate of sorts. And then there is, the other set of people who are deep into it, who can understand what's under the hoods and are looking at deeper aspects of, how do you orchestrate, how do you manage and, govern this whole deployment across managing ethics, responsibility and everything else also, and security as key guardrails. So I would say, if you saw the trend in terms of skill evolution also, there was a lot of focus on, understanding how to work with data, interpreting data. So a sort of data-centric approach was prevailing. And then now you see, as Praveen mentioned, the last 2 years have been so rapid. Initially, it was getting into that AI literacy or like usage mode and all of those things. There's a lot of focus on that, gaining skills on tools, models, and then now it's moved to workflows, right? Where it's getting more decision centric. I think that is a very important nuance we all have to bear in mind, and that is what is like the core of the skill which has to be developed. And further from that, in the more advanced and mature stages, it's not about what can be really accomplished from AI, but how to tell what are the real challenges, and when AI is not true, how do you add that contextual knowledge? How do you validate outcomes? How do you deal with the edge cases? Those are the kind of skills which are going to be even more important, and it's no more about the systemic thinking and all that. You have to gear up for the probabilistic world, and I would like to say that we ought to cultivate a mindset where you are able to shape better problems. Define them very clearly, because the solutions can emerge and there are various means today. So that is going to be very vital, for the next 5-10 years. And of course, keeping up with the trends and not get bogged down by tools and the evolution. How do you manage in this messy ecosystem?
Sure. So at this point, Ravi, I would like to come to you and talk about the governance part of it, because a lot of data we already know everyone is putting on AI for further usage. So what kind of governance is required? What kind of guardrails do you recommend so that AI works for citizens as well?
Yeah, so the good lens to look at this entire governance paradigm vis-a-vis AI is to look at the 4 nodes of Samaj, Sarkar, Bazaar, and for India specifically, because you asked in the previous question, how is it different from the West, etc., is Rozgar, right? And you can look at this at every level of abstraction. So at a country level, right? When we talk about Samaj is all of us, Sarkar, our government, and then Bazaar as the marketplace, generic marketplace across sectors, etc. Us vis-a-vis other countries, export, import, etc. And then Rozgar is employment. You can look at it as an abstraction level of the organization also that you work in. Right here, the Samaj is the employees, right? The Sarkar is the compliance, regulatory, the top management, the leadership, what they want. And then, of course, there is Bazaar, which is your clients, and then Rozgar, which is how work happens within the ecosystem, right? So if you look at these paradigms, levels of abstraction, and use this lens, 4 dimensions, you will realize that at each node, there are interventions required, right? And those guardrails, if I were to qualify them, would be guardrails in terms of where does agency lie within each of these dimensions, right? So is there an agency available with the provider of the solutions to understand or to be sure that tomorrow this will not be kind of controlled in a way that is adversarial to his or her business interest? So that is one form of agency. The other form of agency is with the end user, like us as users of AI, that what are the rights I have to my privacy, to my data, to the documentation that I share with AI, how AI influences my life, right? So that is the agency that you can put with the end user, the citizen or an employee, etc. And then of course there are agencies with other nodes of how do you structure market forces in a way that they tend to increase the pie rather than shrink the pie, right? Of business, of productivity, of GDP gains, because that economic growth needs to trickle down to everyone. And then there is agency, of course, with the governance bodies that what is it that resides within their ecosystem that they can control, they can manage, and they can use to influence outcomes which are relevant to their country, right? So I think at every level, the crux is to drive agency with each of these nodes, right? And just to give you an example, what India has done brilliantly is recently it's launched AgriVistar, which is essentially we're talking about agriculture practices which are very unique to India, and how can AI make interventions, right? And there again, the data sets that we are cropping patterns, crops, soil data, all of these are being made available, openly. Unlike in the West, even these are protected. These are also guardrailed, right? So India has decided that this need not be guardrailed. These can be made available publicly for the benefit of the larger ecosystem to play around with. So these are unique dimensions that you have to think of when you kind of govern AI within the parameters of this country. Is it contextual to my country? And does this affect this how does it affect these 4 nodes? And does it affect them in a very positive way? Those are the larger thought pieces.
Okay, interesting. So Shashank, I'll come to you now at this stage. I mean, we have seen early adopters of AI via ChatGPT, and ChatGPT has been promoting all through advertising and everything. So what work remains to be done on your part for Bharat GPT to further make it as popular as ChatGPT?
Yeah, so people confuse us with ChatGPT and say that Bharat GPT, the Indian version of ChatGPT, but it's actually not. So actually, we are not open source. We are only B2B and B2G, and our services can definitely be availed, but it's through a business. So like we have Ask Disha, that is through IRCTC. So if you go and Ask Disha, it is quite seamless. In your language, you can book a ticket, and the journey is very seamless. Within a couple of minutes, you can do the entire transaction. All those things are there. So we try to make it very human centric, and looking at Indian context, we looking at the diverse population we have. So we have made it available in all Indic languages, depending upon the use cases, whatever it is. We try to cater to most of the citizens, whether that is rural India, urban India. We did campaigns across the rural areas for BJP membership, and we also did some campaigns along with Google and Perfetti, that center fruit chewing gum, and where we reached out to all the rural public having a feature phone. So the agent was talking on a feature phone, and people were getting engaged. That was more a kind of a brand promotion. But yes, we made that possible. Even Mahakumbh happened. So all those things are there. So agents were created which were catering to all the people of India in their language, whatever the query is. So the basic funda is like we are ready to lead this entire AI championship, or whatever it is, you can say by 2030, provided we focus on the data part, the skill part, the policy part, the infrastructure part. If everything is made accommodatable for us, yes, definitely we can drive a long way ahead.
But any specific example or use case you would like to discuss with our audience, I mean, while building it for enterprises?
Yeah, so we are now getting more popular as an enterprise stack AI. So we are working with companies like Bosch and all. So what we are doing is that we are giving them a whole stack. Maybe the entire workflow gets automated. So they come across in a leadership business review, which happens every month. MBR they call it as. And what we have done is we have made a conversational analytics. The solution name is conversational analytics. So they have a huge set of database which gets integrated with our platform. Whenever the MBR happens, the leader, rather than juggling through the Excel sheets, they just voice it out, saying that what is the metrics, like what is the revenue, what is the attrition of this department in this quarter. Then you get a voice response. Along with that, you get a proper suggestions, the next steps, the insights. When I say insights, you can download the bar charts, donut charts, pie charts. So it gives a proper analysis to that particular metrics. So as he said, if AI is taken in a positive way, it can do wonders.
Praveen, I'm going to come to you now. We heard the startup perspective. Now I want to understand the corporate perspective. How the two you think can work together to further enhance the impact of AI?
So there are forums like this. There are forums like METI. There are NASCOM forums, which gives a visibility of the startup ecosystem, right? So Y Combinator is extremely popular in the US. There are a lot of incubators, starting from business schools, that are providing a platform as an incubator in terms of mentorship, in terms of capital. So you have to be visible, you have to be present, you have to make yourself aware for companies like us, or any enterprise for that matter. So we work with startups in terms of picking a very narrow use case that is relevant for an enterprise. Enterprises are usually skeptical in terms of empaneling a lot of startups because it becomes unmanageable for them. But we white label that solution, we provide a platform. The platform is, you cannot go sell in all the geographies, right? So we white label a solution, we know what you're capable of. It's a very narrow and deep problem that you're solving. That's how, partnerships with startups and larger organizations help deploy your solutions into business ecosystems.
Sure, but any specific learnings or use case you would like to discuss with our audience on AI adoption?
Yeah, so again, these are sector-specific examples that I can talk about.
So healthcare, you mentioned that is a big sector.
Yeah, healthcare is one big sector that we focus on. For example, we work with cardiologists, okay? There are a lot of inference models that are there which are trained on data which is not Indian cohort or Indian diaspora, right? So there are PubMed sources that are available which has data from the Western countries. So it's so nuanced for you to understand that if you want to build a lifestyle platform in AI, you need to have Indian data for Indian population, right? So you cannot use a UK citizens, their genetics working the same way as our lifestyle, our food habits, and whatever we follow, right? So there are startups that are working purely in terms of getting the data for the Indian cohort, and it's not a small task, right? So they are tying up with the health record. So it's called ABA. The government of India has something called ABA, which is a health record for the Indian population, which also integrates with Ayushman Bharat, which is the largest insurance provider for India, right? So these are examples where we work with startups to solve a very specific problem in the Indian context.
Okay, interesting. Vikram, I'll come to you. So we discussed about healthcare, talking about other sectors, whether it's agriculture or the way government is adopting AI. So any specific use cases you would like to discuss?
So I think across industries, right, there is varied levels of maturity and also in different geographies. I'll be able to give you a perspective from, what's happening as a very drastic mindset shift, even in the very conservative European market, including complex industries, which are public sector, defense, and financial industry is of course out there. I wouldn't say, agriculture is undergoing such a drastic change out there, but whereas in India, I think as you would have seen, the kind of impact which was also showcased during the summit which happened in February, and the kind of knowledge which is getting assimilated, and also the emergence of startups, or like scalers, I would say, like CoRover or Bharat GPT. So it is unbelievable, right? But then see, what's happening is it's all fragmented, right? if you look at how this is getting implemented, one is of course where people are looking to go for solutions which show you a return on investment, which answers the traditional applications of cost reduction, productivity gains, or marginal revenue increase. But then I think where there is a deep focus necessary, and where there has to be a collective ecosystem coming into play is for the return on future, as Gartner is putting it, for the industries, and how you are envisaging the next wave in itself. And we are slowly but steadily, I mean, getting into that mold. And to do that, again, I mean, you asked Praveen, how is the industry and startup ecosystem working, and we also are very, very I mean, closely wedded to that approach. And one area is, of course, the niches where you work with specific use cases, specific industries, but there are also other larger applications where we're trying to work with startup ecosystems across our portfolio chain, including how AI consumption is going to be impacted, because it's not going to come cheap, right? At the end of the day, I mean, especially when you're talking of the fields like agriculture and all that, I mean, like, I think the computational resources which have to be combined is going to be enormous. And how do we bid for that new currency, right? It is going to become the new norm. And in India, I think we are seeing a drastic change, and it's becoming significantly cheaper and affordable. I think we will have to have a close measure of all these things with the right guardrails, as Ravi was indicating as well, right, to take it further.
Sure. So at this point in time, I would like to open the floor for any audience questions. If you have any questions, please raise your hands, and the mic will be passed on to you. Can we have the mic passed on to the gentleman here?
This question is very specific to Praveen. You were talking about market leaders in the AI adoption. Can you please actually provide details of them, if possible? And again, what level they are there? Thanks.
Sure. So when I say market leaders, I'm just comparing them with digital adopters and digital leaders when the digital transformation was happening. So let's take examples like Walmart, Amazon, right? So they're not waiting for somebody to show them the benefit or value of a specific use case. So there were traditional AI, and there was AI after this inflection of ChatGPT, right? So how agentic AI use cases are being implemented? They throw a lot of money in terms of experimentation and then derive value in their use, in their ecosystem. And it's not a specific, what do you say? A wave that everybody is riding. I'll give you a very specific example. A lot of companies say, I want to improve customer service, customer experience through AI, right? And there is no clear metric to measure that. But if you define that, I want to solve customer tickets in less than 45 minutes for 80% of the cases, that's a metric that can be measured, right? Today in boardrooms, it's like a New Year resolution. Everybody wants to adopt AI. But what are you going to do with AI? What is the ROI it brings, right? So people who have that clarity and apply that clarity in their business are the leaders, in my opinion. And of course, they need to have the courage to implement this because it's a disruptive technology, right? And third is changing the culture within their organization. So I think these are the three patterns: courage, culture, and clarity.
Actually, have you come across those kind of people?
Can you please take the follow-on question outside?
Okay.
Thank you. Any other question? Can we pass on the mic to the lady here?
Thank you. My question is specifically to Ankusha and Ravi. You talked about the B2G model and data protection when it comes to AI. And I would want to understand that once you're operating on a B2G level, right, how is control and implementation happening? Because there might be a lot of confidential data also which might not be something that should be coming on a public scrutiny or public platforms or everyone who is using the AI, right? So how is that protected is what I would want to understand.
Yeah, so for IRCTC, what you mentioned is that whatever is there, that is on their premise. So when we say on premise, means everything is in their control. Whatever APIs, whatever knowledge base which they share with us is within their control. So we make sure that the data doesn't leak out, and the device what I was talking about, the desk AI device, is the similar to that, which can keep all your data under your control, and there is no, like, you will not have to use a GPU or all. For a small use cases, we can use that desk AI device, and you can manage the entire workflow through that. Yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, one last question.
Hey, hi. Hi, Ankush. I think my question is related to, so we are a startup from Better Lab. So what we do is basically we work on R&D and science product development. So we always look for some AI, instead of Indian AI tools to use. So we don't get any, instead Serverm or a Bharat GPT where we access to work with. Largely we work with a Western company like, 11 labs give us a 4,000 credits and we work on. So is there a way that, you guys are going to open it for at least for startups who are trying to build something in AI in manufacturing and the different space where we can also get access as well? That will be great.
Yes. So, yeah, so the platform, I am not sure if you have been on bharatgpt.com, but when you go there, you will have a platform, you will have a limited access. When I say limited access, you get a limited credits to use it. You get the entire workflow. You can create your voice agent, you can create your chat bot, you can create your video agent. But yes, it's just that it's limited currency. So once you start integrating more knowledge base, more database, and then you start more queries and all, the credit will go over, and then maybe you will have to purchase a plan or something like that. But yes, you can definitely shoot out a mail. We can help you get access to that so that you can explore that. Yeah.
So with this, we come to the end of this session. And before we let you go, just one last few words from each one of you, probably a one-liner in terms of how do you see the adoption of AI in India in the next 10 years? I start with you.
Adoption in India, I think we're at a very exciting phase where we see Indian companies are at the forefront. We are not waiting for learning from similar companies in the Western side. So you see CoRover, Bharat GPT, Serverm, Sovereign AI, and the recent event that happened in Delhi, which was a hallmark, a showcase of what India can do to the world, right?
I think the key takeaway from today's conversation is that we cannot be AI deniers. We have to understand that this fait accompli, we have to embrace it. Now, how do we do that very prudently is where, that will kind of create opportunities for our country and our countrymen. So that is where the whole crux lies. And my request to the audience here is also to consider AI as a team member you need to co-opt, and that would be the way forward as far as AI journey is concerned for most of us in the next 10 years.
Yeah, so we have heard many things good about AI. We have heard many things bad about AI. But being a AI company, being a startup, I think what we think is that we all should welcome AI with a positive note. Be all keeping everything contextual, keeping everything in our mind, like the responsibility part, the sovereignty part, the ethics part, the guardrails part. If everything is aligned, I think we are good to go.
See, we are a 1.4 billion population. So I think we had missed the semiconductor bus and didn't manage to catch on soon enough. But I think every Indian is now well aware and making an effort to be at the forefront on this level playing field in the space of AI. And our folks are, I think, demonstrating not just the ability to craft use cases. We were earlier being touted as the use case capital and other things, but then with the emergence of companies like Bharat GPT, I mean, what audacity, right? and that's the strength, calling it Bharat GPT, and so many others like what we have seen from the AI summit, and not coming up with our own models alone, but also establishing the right policies and guardrails which are essential. We are establishing as a leader for the global south, and I'm sure with whatever is happening across the industries, our industries like ours are seeing a lot of global leadership roles being transitioned here, new kinds of work streams emerging, and it's being well accepted. And our academic, infrastructure and, the knowledge pool is no less, and they are getting geared up. So I see, a great, bright future if we stay at it. And, Jai Hind.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That brings us to the end of this session. Thank you so much, panelists, and with helping our audience navigate their way through AI. Thank you.